Welcome back to Peak Performance Radio. Today we have the founder, one of the founders of TeamBuildr, and I'm really excited to have actually this conversation about this application and software solution for team sports. But I wanted to share with you guys some updates that we've done on our website recently. We've added some really cool things, such as our Pinterest information, our Google Plus account, and we're really making a strong push at trying to make our landing page kind of a home for all the information. Like, for example, when you see this podcast next, you'll see TeamBuildr's widget advertisement on our cast of speakers. You'll also see a listing of all our podcasts, all our blog posts to the left here, so you don't have to actually click through. You can. We do offer a lot of opportunities for free content, like a 12-week program for soccer-specific training, our free newsletter, and then some recommended products. This is a category here that kind of gets glanced at. I'm friends with a couple of strength coaches, and they created a great program, Strength on Demand. I can't get enough of it. It's great when I'm on the road. I get to keep my education up, especially if you're trying to maintain yourself sharp and you're trying to keep yourself ahead of the game. A great source of information. And then I ask all the time to the people that we're speaking to, what's some books that they recommend? And this is kind of the area where we started posting them. Starting Strength Super Training. If you're going to read Super Training, make sure to have a lot of, I would say, stimulants around to read it. Built to Last, The War of Art, and then some supplements that we support. So go ahead, take a look at that new things on our landing page, and then across the top, you'll see that we have our categories, our podcast, our fitness post, our sports science post, and our business post. So with no further ado, I want to welcome the Hewitt onto this call, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I'm going to shut my mouth up, and then I'm going to have my standard questions that you guys are used to hearing me, but this is going to be less of the standard, more of a really deep dive into this important application. So if you're looking to organize your strength and conditioning programs, if you're looking to actually help your athletes get a better understanding of what's going on in your program, and if you're trying to, quite honestly, go green and save money and go completely electronic, I think this is a great opportunity for you strength coaches out there that have to really jump on this opportunity and learn more about this. So for no further ado, I'm going to hand it right over. So with no further ado, here we have our presentation. It's a TeamBuildr solution that I was telling you about. I'm looking forward to hearing about this in greater detail. Go ahead, Hewitt.
Hey, Marcelo. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate the chance to get on here and talk some strength and conditioning with you. Even if it is a Friday night, we're getting after it and getting better at what we do.
That's right. Got to work hard.
That's right. So I guess I'll start off then and talk about TeamBuildr. So TeamBuildr essentially is an online training solution. And the way we came up with the idea for TeamBuildr is when my partner and I were actually athletes. And what happened was we were Division III football players, and we would go home for the summer, and we thought that, we kind of realized that there was this problem, right? And not a lot of people recognize this problem because they don't necessarily think about it, because when you go home with a paper packet, it's just the way it's always been done. And we kind of, stepped back for a second. We thought, hey, wait a minute, it's 2011. Why are we carrying around paper packets and coming back for the summer, after the summer and just seeing what everyone's done? And why do we have to spend 2-3 months away from each other without any kind of accountability with these paper packets? And then, we're listing the problems here, and we're saying that the coaches, we're almost with the coaches all the time during the season, And then for 3 months, we don't see them at all. We don't see our strength coach. So there's no two-way communication. It's really just the coach giving you a packet. The fourth thing is we spend the whole spring working out, kind of competing with each other. It's a great way to get better. Then all of a sudden the summertime comes and the competition is just taking out. So we compete all season and we compete all off season in the spring. But as soon as we go home, that component is completely missing out of the off season.
So let me ask you a question right off the bat. You're saying you guys are competing. So can you tell me that? Like, so do the student athletes log on and you have to post?
That's exactly right. So the idea behind TeamBuildr is that the online training system allows you to input your data, your fitness data, and it gets measured. So you can measure it against yourself and track your progress over time, but also will compare you to your teammates so you can compete against each other because your data is in there.
That's awesome. So, and it makes sense now with the generations being more about getting I would guess the younger generations, since I'm no longer, I can't consider myself that part. They're more savvy. Everyone has a smartphone. Everyone has access to a computer on campus.
That's exactly right. Augie Morelli, he's at Delaware now, obviously. He gives a great talk about this. The millennial generation, the kids now that are 16 to 25 years old, they're the tech-savvy generation. They really expect information. They're kind of demanding. But what they really want is just ease of access because that's what they're used to in every facet of life. So conditioning with a paper packet just kind of seems primitive to them, and it kind of handicaps them because they're capable of doing much more than that.
Sometimes, that's really interesting. Seems kind of primitive. It's kind of funny. I mean, tradition's pretty big in the industry, right? So you probably know this the most. And there's a picture of you, everyone. There's Hewitt. And there's James, who couldn't be on a call here with us. Unfortunately, so people are aware, that's why we're meeting Friday night. There was a mix-up with meetings, but regardless of that, things come up, and I'm really happy to have this. But to get back to what I was trying to talk about, you've experienced it. You've been a strength coach. I've assisted. I've worked with different programs. Sometimes strength coaches are kind of apprehensive of taking a dive into this. What's your feeling on it? How do you feel about that? Do they get engaged over this? Do you feel like I think it's better timing, if you may?
Yeah. Well, let me answer your question in reverse. Over the long term, we really think that TeamBuildr is where strength and conditioning is going to be in the next 5-10 years. As the younger guys keep climbing the ladder and take control of these programs, they're going to come from backgrounds that expect more of technology to be a role in how they do their jobs. But now, Marcelo, you're right. Tradition is very much in place. The strength coaches who are heads of programs now learned from their strength coach that was their strength coach back in the 70s and the 80s. Sometimes they take tradition. They have a hard time separating tradition from innovation, and that they don't have to be mutually exclusive. Just because we're bringing something new to the table doesn't mean that you have to let go of the foundational principles of work ethic, hard work, grit, and those types of things. So the biggest challenge when introducing something like this is to say that nothing else changes about how you run the program. From a foundational kind of work ethic standpoint, all that changes is the tools that you're using to accomplish your goals.
That's awesome.
So I'll go ahead now and introduce who we are behind TeamBuildr. James Peters and I, we're teammates and roommates in college. We went to Johns Hopkins and played football there for Coach Margrath.
Wow.
We didn't necessarily have a head strength coach, but we had a strength program. And we did, for 3 years, we did the same thing. 4 years, we did the paper packet, and we took it home, and then we filled it in, and we brought it back. But we would come back, and, some guys would be in better shape than others. But it was all kind of a surprise. But the most dangerous part is that the season was about, 20 days away. We had less than 3 weeks to prepare. It's kind of late to really get in the season shape that we want to get in, for the players that were behind. So, we're kind of facing a problem that could have been dealt with 3 months earlier. And that was, a majority of the inspiration for creating TeamBuildr. Now, when we built TeamBuildr, originally it was something just for the school at Hopkins. We didn't know if it would work. Excuse me, my PowerPoint keeps skipping ahead because it's on some kind of play mode. But, just like in any industry, in any market, before you take something and provide it to everyone, you really want to make sure it's a good idea. So we tested it out with the sports teams at Hopkins, and we tried to be as unbiased and tell coaches, you don't owe us anything because we're here at Hopkins. Treat this as if it were a tool that came out of nowhere, and if it's useful and valuable, then let us know. If not, tell us it's not. Well, it ended up being, Marcelo, that we kind of thought that this was something that people could use after starting out at Hopkins. The coaches liked it, but the players liked it. And as soon as we kept building it and bringing it to coaches, we started getting signs from everywhere that people actually like this kind of stuff. And we've had a great reception so far. The problem is really breaking down the barrier and making it a full-fledged, tool within a program. So again, as I mentioned, working with Hopkins was our start. But we've had some coaches that kind of, in the beginning, helped us along the way. One of these coaches is Steve Smith at Lynchburg College. It's actually Dr. Steve Smith. I think he has his PhD. He was one of the early adopters and really kind of built his whole strength program around TeamBuildr. Well, now, we're talking about 400 to 500 athletes on a daily basis that use TeamBuildr. It's how he communicates with his players. He texts through TeamBuildr. He sends them emails through TeamBuildr. And, it's almost been 2 years now, and he just doesn't stop telling us how much of a no-brainer this is for programs that he couldn't imagine taking on the role he has without using it. So people like Steve and Jay Dyer have really been encouraging for us, but we're starting to see more and more from coaches how if they take TeamBuildr and really commit to it and buy into the program, it really does see a return on investment.
Yeah, because it makes complete sense, right? The best job that you can do is communicating, and you got to be able to measure what your goals are.
That's right. I bring these two quotes up here. People have probably seen them before. But, if you get a paper packet, where are your goals? Do you have to set your personal goals? Does your coach give them to you? I mean, he probably does. But the fact of the matter is you're still by yourself, and it's still kind of hard to go 3 months having grueling workouts, but, having nothing to interact with as far as your goals. And we feel like TeamBuildr can provide that because you're constantly surrounded by your players, even though it's online. The second thing is, as a strength coach, how do you measure your success? I mean, you test your athletes when they get back, but don't you want to have some sort of degree of control or make sure that your players are going to come back and test as well as they can? You think about other industries, how a salesman has his metrics, or how a property or construction manager has his key performance indicators. As a strength coach, a coach should always be measuring what he's doing to really see if it works or not. And we think that TeamBuildr really helps put an objective number on every player so that he can measure what he's doing for that program.
Well, it makes complete sense. I mean, I could speak from the business side on that. It's basically what you guys have is a client relationship management tool. And each coach, their client is the student athlete. So, yeah, it's very valuable.
Agreed. It's the little things that make a difference. But in this case, I think it's a huge deal because we are talking about 3 months out of the year. Moving on here, I think we actually kind of jumped the gun on this slide, Marcelo, but when we're talking about the Generation Y, the millennials, like I was saying, they all want to work smarter and not harder, but we don't want to take that out of concept. We're not saying that no one's going to put in as much effort in the weight room. What we're saying is that effort, they could visualize their effort a little bit more so that they know what they're doing is working. And if it's not, they can address it rather than just kind of go on the whole season or the whole summer, doing something without actually knowing or believing in it. The other thing is what we also mentioned before, the strength coach dilemma. The most valuable time for a strength coach is when his players are making the biggest gains. That's in the summer. But how's he measuring? How's he going to actually see and improve what he's doing right there and then, rather than 3 months later see his players and then kind of approach it that way?
Well, it's kind of like too late. If they don't know what's going on, they'll know when they test and realize that the student athlete either did the work or didn't do the work, right? And then that's your responsibility. That's how you get measured as a strength coach.
That's right. And I'm speaking from the perspective of a player, but also as a perspective of a coach. The best case scenario is when all of your players come back and no one fails a conditioning test. No one actually wants anyone to fail that test. We all want to pass it, right? So why stick with the traditional method of having a guy whipped into shape during camp when you can do some things to make sure he comes to camp in shape in the first place? And that's where injuries come in. That's kind of a different subject, but there's a lot of incentive to kind of, be hands-on in the meantime, as opposed to, dealing with conditioning test and then looking at it after that. So here, we want to touch a little bit about the future vision of TeamBuildr. Essentially what we do is that we gather a lot of data from a lot of players in a lot of different ways. And as you know, it's a big topic now in every industry is big data. How can we take this big data and use it to infer some insights that are valuable to us? Our future vision at TeamBuildr is that we can get so much data on so many players that this sample size becomes so big that it's so valuable that we could tell strength coaches what is right and what's wrong on a really large scale. I could just think about now, if I were a strength coach, if you try something and want to measure its effectiveness, you kind of have to wait year after year after year to really see how something works, right? But imagine if we had 1,000 teams on TeamBuildr and we could kind of group them into these workouts by tagging the lists that they do in the system. Then you can look at research that didn't take place over the course of 10 years, but over the course of one summer with 1,000 teams. That's the grand vision, is that we can really get some specific insights here because we grabbed a hold of some really powerful data on a really large scale.
That is pretty powerful. Data is everything, especially when you can grab that data and you can show trends of either improved performance based on programming. So you can start actually doing a longitudinal study that's actually, quite frankly, not sterile. It's not in a lab environment. It's in a real environment. So it's pretty cool.
And we kind of are encouraged by the fact that student athletes love TeamBuildr and therefore are willing to put in their fitness data, because we should note that the NCAA doesn't allow a strength coach to force a player to do TeamBuildr, to put in his numbers. But to be honest, Marcelo, it's a non-issue, because if you give the player the option to do this, they want to track their numbers. They want to see how they're doing. They work hard in the weight room, and they want to know how they can get better. So we're encouraged by that. And we're really hoping to get to the point where we can start making some really exciting and hopefully some groundbreaking insights about strength conditioning through this.
Great.
And that's all I've got for the PowerPoint there. So if you want to ask any questions that you have on your end, I'd be happy to answer some.
Yeah, let's take a step back from the application and talk a little bit about you and your philosophies on certain things. Like, my standard question to all the coaches is when you hear the term peak performance, what does that mean to you? I mean, obviously, just from hearing this presentation, it's kind of evident, but let's hear it from you.
Well, when you're thinking about peak performance, I guess, I have to ask, is there such thing as peak performance? I mean, the goal is to constantly get better. That goes for, your sport and your skill and your craft, as well as strength and conditioning. But peak performance is kind of an ongoing thing. It's kind of more dynamic than it is static, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're constantly seeking ways, whether it be nutrition or methods or skills, to get better at what you do. So peak performance is something that's constantly being discovered, constantly moving, and something you constantly have to keep up with. That's what I think of when I think of peak performance.
Awesome. It's always a unique answer. It's kind of, the whole theme of our podcast is to educate users on good examples, blueprints on peak performance that they could apply. In this example would be more sport team or team sport specific, but I think it could also apply to any environment, because peak performance does mean to always strive to be your best, and it is a dynamic process. It's always ups and downs. It's never going to be a linear process. That being said, are there any books that you would reference from a business standpoint, as well as from a strength and performance standpoint, that you would like to share to our listeners, that you would say it's a good read, go ahead, it's a must read, it should have it in your library?
That's a good question. I do like reading. I'm trying to pick the right one here that I think will most apply. You know what is considered, it's almost considered the Bible of the startup world, but there's a book called The Lean Startup by Eric Ries. But I love the idea of the lean startup because in essence the lean startup says you don't make any assumptions about anything until you have something to believe in order to make that assumption. So just don't assume something works or doesn't work, but rather do lots of, in his book, he says, do lots of small experiments. He really emphasizes measuring. He said, always measure what you do because even though you think something may work or be effective, if you only just measured it, you could really see if that is true or not. And what you'll find out is some things that you assume are true are not. And some things you would never think about, if you just measured it, you could see that it worked. So he applies this to businesses that are young and trying to start up off the ground. And he always points out that the founder of these businesses have some kind of preconception in their mind about how the business is supposed to succeed. And he's trying to get them to erase that and to start measuring little things the business does and accelerate on the things that succeed as opposed to the ones that he thinks will succeed.
That's an awesome reference. Is there a reference maybe for strength and conditioning?
For strength and conditioning, I got to tell you, we're not exactly bookworms when it comes to strength and conditioning. Again, we're I don't want to hit too much on the Generation Y thing, but we're kind of we're the Twitter generation, so we get our information online from our Twitter feed. But there are some great resources online, and one of them is Sports Performance Network. Is a great thing, and Augie Morelli is also a Hopkins alum. So you go back to Hopkins and ask anyone who was there while he was there, and he's kind of like a legend,
That's awesome. No, it's fine. My follow-up to that was exactly what you just shared, which is, the younger generation, and I'm young too. I don't want to make it sound like I'm ancient on this podcast. I'm not. It's just that it's interesting, and it's quite evident that, like it or not, we're moving towards an environment where it is exactly a Twitter type of environment. It is a web environment. I mean, let's be honest. Mike Boyle has his strength coach podcast on. He has his blog post. If all the big for an expression from one of the coaches that I like, I'll borrow, Big Dog. If all the big dogs are moving to this, because like it or not, you got the youth is pulling us there because they want instant information. So obviously you use apps. You're an app developer. You work with it. It's kind of a biased question, but a loaded question. What other apps or what other technology do you use in your environment?
We really like the fitness tracking that's out there. I mean, it's kind of taking over, but you think it's as simple as downloading an app on your phone and going out for a jog, and it'll return you all these metrics. It could be something like a heart rate monitor. We were actually at the University of Maryland speaking with the strength coach, and I went to the strength coach office for the basketball program. And they're entirely just enveloped in measuring the kind of output and the energy that their players put out at different times. So, Under Armour hooks them up with the heart rate monitors, and then they're looking at doing perpetual surveying so that they can constantly survey how their players feel to kind of get a feedback on what they do to them from a strength standpoint. I really think fitness tracking, whether you're talking about the heart rate monitors or the GPS tracking, all of that together is really insightful. I'm fascinated by it. I don't know if TeamBuildr is actually going to get into that niche because we're kind of spreading ourselves thin. But I love it. I think if an individual player has enough initiative to do that stuff, then more power to them, because that's where you really discover a lot about your health and fitness.
I agree with you. It's really interesting. I mean, phone apps and tablets and accelerometers, gyroscopes, and GPS, and heart rate monitoring. I'm a little biased because of my background. I was worked many years with various different types of physiological status monitoring companies. So for me, that's kind of close to me, and I've seen really good successful models. You brought up Under Armour. I actually had an opportunity for that Under Armour 39 shirt to participate with the company that helped them develop that. It was awesome findings, seeing the applications at the draft and then, and that's actually, I think I met you guys at NSCA Nashville initially. I think that was
that's right.
Yeah. And I just immediately when I saw this, I just said, you know what? Here's a light bulb. It makes complete sense. So it looks like you got the web page up. Want to walk us through it?
Sure. I'd love to go in. About NSC8, the reception we got there was amazing. We really enjoyed what we saw from the coaches as far as enthusiasm. What we're proud about with TeamBuildr is that it's for any level, and it's affordable at any level. We really want high school coaches and players to reap the benefits of this, as opposed to making it a really high-level technology. So we're glad to hear that the high school coaches really enjoy it and are able to use it.
Have you guys ever went to the Texas High School football convention?
Yeah, we haven't been to that yet.
It's a great convention. It's huge. A lot of good high schools there. Obviously, I mean, Texas is a great opportunity, I think.
Okay, well we'll be happy to hop along with the peak performance bandwagon, and on the next trip we'll pair up. Why don't we?
That's not a bad idea.
All right, so going through the website, I do want to say that the website is getting redesigned right now. So what you're looking at is TeamBuildr 1.0. What comes out this winter will be TeamBuildr 2.0, and we'll just kind of release all the improvements based on the feedback we've gotten from coaches. So as a coach, what you really like to do is begin adding workouts for your players. So we have a calendar application where you essentially choose who you like to create workouts for. So here we have football, we have linemen, we have skill. So let's go ahead and go into skill. On a day-by-day basis, we can go ahead and create workouts, including adding a note. You can say anything like make sure to hydrate, or anything you like to say on a day-to-day basis. You can add a warm-up, also attach a document for that warm-up. And then now you can get into doing things like adding a run. So you can create your runs on the spot, or you could use a run that are ranked between the players, such as like a mile, or maybe have them run a couple 100-yard sprints or something like that. But you put this in, you can let them put in the time or put in the completion. It's really kind of flexible and customizable to what you'd like to do. The next thing would be to add a lift. You build your database of lifts and just simply make them on the spot if you haven't made them yet. You can track for a lift, or if you don't want to track for a lift, that's fine as well. People usually do that for like dumbbell workouts. And you can actually attach a YouTube video to each lift or to a run, so that if a player is referring to his phone, he can just view the YouTube video and actually get instruction from the video before he does it. Coaches love this when it comes to incoming freshmen at the college level. A lot of freshmen don't know the nomenclature and can't read the instructions and interpret them really well, so watching the video just takes care of that really well.
Freshmen always have a tough time, don't they?
I remember my freshman year, the crazy names for the crazy lifts. I just thought, what's going on here?
Yeah, I agree.
So you go in with the sets and reps, and of course you can do custom sets and reps. If you do the pyramid scheme, you can add your percentages for each one. Now, if a player already has a max for a lift, as you set the percentages, it will go ahead and calculate that out. So when the player gets the workout, he doesn't have to do the calculation or refer to a chart. TeamBuildr will go ahead and suggest to him what to lift. He can go ahead and do the lift. And then lastly, we can create circuits and add a circuit in here on a day-by-day basis. And we add our circuits, they go in, and when you create a day's workout, there you have it. And then you can go ahead and copy workouts, or just go to the next day and start building the next workout.
So this is automatically deployed to your roster?
As soon as this gets put in the system, the player will get a daily email or a daily text message the day of the workout. He can log on to his phone app and receive today's workout and go from there, or he can log online and print the workout out if he likes it on paper. But yeah, it takes place automatically.
That's awesome.
Exactly. And when your whole system is running and all the wheels are turning, eventually all the players and their data will be here in the team feed. So, for instance, Marcelo Aller sets a new record at bench press, 345 pounds. Boom, your name comes up in the team feed, and everyone knows about it, because that's the way it should be. If someone's working hard, the teammates should know they're working hard. They should be notified.
Actually, in my heyday, I actually benched 380.
Oh, 380, okay.
In my heyday, I don't know if I can get under 340 now.
Well, that 340, 380, it's more than what we bench.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is also where coaches make announcements. You can imagine a Facebook feed, and this is your team Facebook. However, the main subject is not socializing and pictures of cats and political articles. It's just strength conditioning.
That's pretty cool. You could put up motivational things. You could call each other out a little bit and motivate the group, and those are, and identify. Obviously, you have their achievements. It definitely provides. What I noticed is the younger generation wants feedback and kind of craves it and gets motivated by it. Do you feel like the programs that you're involved in, some of the SEC programs, some of the other areas of divisions really adopt this?
I really do. And to tell you the truth, when we were getting into this, we thought that the female athletes would kind of stave off a little bit and be more hesitant to approach it. But what we found out, just like Lean Startup, don't make any assumptions, we assumed wrong. The women's teams actually love TeamBuildr because they love this team feed. They like coming here every day, and they like saying, "Let's go, girls. Good work. Keep it up. Season's in 2 weeks." And we were just kind of blown away by the amount of interaction we got from the girls on our system. So I thought the reception has been really good. It's far. Go ahead.
There's a book about that, a psychological book called Top Dog. If you've never read it, it talks exactly about what you're saying, which is the psychology of a woman compared to a psychology of a man, and how they respond. And women love this type of feedback. Guys are not as they are, but it's more of a structure thing. And girls or I should say women. I don't want to be, have nasty comments when I post this. It's the feedback. It's quite interesting. But obviously you've experienced it. It's so true. And that book really talks about actually specific studies where they did this longitudinally and actually proven it in research. So yeah. Great book, Top Dog. I'll dig up the authors and I'll post it on the when we post this in a blog post. So if anyone wants to know the book I'm citing, besides the other books that for Lean Startup, and I will post that in the links as well.
Please do that. We found out firsthand, but we would never have guessed.
So. There's a lot of good tools here. The workout tools, the coaching tools, the messaging. How about sharing a couple more? What would you do to? What are some other things that you found that are really important, that are pretty valuable for a coach?
Right. Well, the one thing is when a coach builds a workout on Excel, it ends up being too tedious to really go player by player and build his individual workout, or go player group by player group. So a lot of the times you'll see, and especially at high school programs, Marcelo, you'll see a uniform workout for the team. So we want to give coaches a tool that where they don't have to do that. So what we allow them to do is create a group for these players. So It's as simple as naming a group here. You can name them the linebackers or, the overweight or the underweights, but you can create these groups, and we want you to actually, use them and build workouts specifically for them. And our system makes it easy to do that. So if we had more players, we'd be able to filter players here. We say we have 42 now, a bunch in linemen, a bunch in skill, and maybe a few guys that aren't are in any group. But, we'd like to just take what is the old model and really create a new model where every single player gets his own customized, individualized workout that's optimal for him. I don't know why it's easy here, but every player should get a chance to reach his or her peak performance because a coach has the tool to do so, and that is not limited by time to have to create a workout for every single player.
That's awesome. You took exactly a problem and are providing a nice solution for it. I remember getting, our football manuals, our books, and it was pretty much one size fits all. They did separate the bigs from the smalls, but that was pretty much it.
Yeah, and we've seen that a lot, and I think this is what we're hoping to do is create a little bit more customization to the process. But, it's things like this, eventually a coach gave us feedback to do this. So a lot of these features that we build, we wouldn't build anything without a coach telling us first that it would be valuable to them. So I'll show you something here that really became valuable. And we call this build packet. It's a pretty lame name, but what it does is actually pretty powerful. What we can do is once a coach creates a workout, either for a sport or for a group, he can choose that sport and choose the date range for that workout. And then it'll create a PDF print-friendly packet, and he can print that packet, and that packet will then be printed out name by name. And obviously here we don't have a workout built. I wish I had some data to show you. But a workout will be printed out name by name so that as players walk into the weight room, he can give them their own individual workout that he created, and he didn't have to hit the print button 26 times just to get it out of the system.
And the reason why you don't share that information is because of HIPAA rules, right? You can't share information from, actually a real, one, it's proprietary, it's not information that can be shared. So if anyone's hearing this and wondering, why aren't they sharing? Well, because there are things that protect schools and individuals. We don't just share information. This is an example, folks. I hope you get that. I hope you understand that. And for the educated strength coach, yes. But for some of the other listeners that might be interested in a strength coach environment, or some of the high school, or stepping in their first year being an assistant or being an intern, that's really that's just a quick tidbit of information. You protect the information and you protect the student athlete's identity.
And that's a really good point, Marcelo. And every player that agrees to use the system must volunteer to do so and sign an agreement because when you deal with strength conditioning and fitness data, you do get out some pretty touchy things. So we want to make sure that everyone's protected and not being liable just to take advantage of the tool.
Yep. So this, let's jump back into some questions and what would you share with some coach that's just stepping into the industry that, obviously you have a lot to share because you've experienced some of the old traditional methodology and now you're ushering in a new way of thinking. What would you tell some of the younger students that are aspiring to step into their first year of coaching or are interested after their senior year saying, hey, I want to be a strength coach? What would you tell them to be ahead, 2 or 3 steps ahead of where you were?
Well, I think that this is pretty commonplace in the strength conditioning industry, and it is so for a good reason. When coaches go to clinics and conferences, they always pick up little things here or there. They never really necessarily adopt the whole philosophy and apply it holistically to their team. They take bits and pieces of what they like and they craft it together. Essentially, every strength and conditioning coach in some way has taken something that someone else has created before them and has implemented into his program, or if not, he's creating something that others will use. We're all sitting in the shade of trees that people planted before us. So for a young guy coming in, I would just say, first, Rome wasn't built in a day. Your program is not going to be flawless the first year you come in. But what you can do is come in with an open mind, and you can take the things with you that you've learned and that do work, and then you can go search for the things that you don't know whether they work or not. I don't know what's going on here. But yeah, that's exactly what I'd say. I'd say, it's a work in progress. So just take what has worked for you, and then try to seek out what you're looking to do. And the only way to do that is really to be really rigorous in the way you go out and you attend conferences and you're diligent and you're reading books and you're reading research and you really take a plunge into the industry and not back up into your own corner and sit in your weight room and really not be involved in what's going on out there, because the reality is, just like this podcast, there are people out there getting involved and rubbing shoulders and elbows, and they're trying to figure out what does work, what doesn't work. It's all a big trial and error, and then we can discover the things that are successful only by doing that.
That's awesome. So, hopefully, that's a lot of insight that you just shared, and I would like to wrap it up there. And first of all, maybe we can do a follow-up of any updates or any features, or maybe a deeper dive of a good example. I know if people want to find out more about your app, there's your URL. It's www.teambuildr.net, and that's TeamBuildr.net. Hewitt, this is awesome. Thanks a lot for your patience and understanding this week, and for enjoying your Friday night, or starting off your Friday night with me. Again, this was awesome. Thanks a lot. And we would love to hear any feedback that any coach has out there. Again, all the links will be posted when we post this. And thanks a lot. And stay tuned for our next podcast. It should be out. We should have 2 out, hopefully, in the near future. After this one's released next Wednesday or Thursday, guys. And we have a bunch of blog posts coming out. So thanks again, Hewitt. Is there anything before we sign off here, any event or any presentation that you're going to be at, or anything that you want to share with the group?
I haven't finalized a schedule for some of the events that we'll be at in the future. But what I did want to say was we're putting out a new version of TeamBuildr, and we're putting out a beta version, a private beta for coaches. If you want to be a part of the beta and test it out for us and give us some feedback, that's just like that's invaluable to our success. So if you kind of want to be a part of something new and be an integral part of making it successful, and you want to beta test the new TeamBuildr, please let us know. It's free for up to the first 50 players, so it's not going to cost you anything as long as you stay below 50 players.
That's an awesome opportunity. There's definitely some high school channels that I'll post that to, and I'll just point them your way. Thanks for sharing that. I look forward to following up with you guys in the future. And thanks again for taking the time out.
Marcelo, thanks for having me.